Elden Ring has a ton of unique character designs scattered all throughout the lands between. Some of these tarnished are heroes, some are creepy, and some are straight up evil. I've been beating Elden Ring as all sorts of characters, which are usually called cosplay runs. Cosplay runs not only set challenges for the players by limiting the amount of equipment they can use, but they also help others find new builds to replay the game with. For today's pick, I decided to go with Ensha. He's an extremely cool character, so if you guys like this video, consider subscribing. Before we jump into the run, let's quickly go over the rules. I can only use Ensha's equipment, I must complete Ensha's questline, and I can't summon, because that just kind of defeats the whole purpose of this type of video. Ensha's build consists of his armor set and a unique weapon, which is called the Cleaning Bone Fist. He also uses a meteorite staff to cast Rocksling and Collapsing Stars. There's nothing else to say, so let's jump right into the run. I replicated Ensha's character and chose the Golden Seed as my keepsake. I went with the warrior class simply because it has the most dexterity, and Ensha's main weapon takes 22 dex. As always, I immediately unequipped every item that the class came with and headed towards Limgrave. After grabbing Torrent, I took advantage of the trap chest in the Lake of Limgrave to teleport to Caelid. Here, I grabbed one out of the 2 spells that Ensha uses, which is Rocksling. Right nearby, I can also grab the Meteorite Staff. This is a great staff for the early game, especially considering it boosts gravity spells. But it's impossible to upgrade it, so it did become progressively worse throughout this playthrough. Before doing anything major, I did what every Elden Ring playthrough requires. I ran around for an hour collecting loads of supplies, such as golden seeds, sacred tears, talismans, and somber stones for Ensha's equipment. Using a golden foulfoot, I cheesed the Knight's Cavalry and happened to have just enough rooms to meet the requirement for both the Rocksling spell and the Cleaning Bone weapon. Ensha's main goal is to serve Gideon, who is in search of the Haligtree medallion. After finding a man named Albus in the Albernoric village, I received the first half of this medallion. Before doing this though, I must complete Ensha's questline, because obtaining this item will change his character quite a bit. Returning to the Roundtable Hold with the medallion triggers Ensha to attack us, in hopes of taking the item for himself. Using his own spell against him, I easily took out the NPC on my first try. This grants us the Cleaning Bone Fist weapon, along with Ensha's full armor set, which just looks really cool. At this point, I'm only missing the other spell, but that's unobtainable until I beat Radahn. So for now, I decided to just take on Margit. And for a bit of a challenge, I decided to not upgrade the Cleaning Bone, to 1, make the fight a little longer, and 2, to force myself to get comfortable with Rocksling. I'm not kidding when I say I've pretty much never used a sorcery in any of my cosplay runs. Looking at the characters I've completed on this channel, they're all only seen using incantations if anything. But Rocksling is actually pretty strong for how easily it is to access in the early game. It also broke Margit's stance multiple times, which let me take advantage of the Cleaning Bone. Before, I grabbed the Arrow's Sting Talisman. I originally thought it would boost the damage dealt by Rocksling, but it didn't. Instead, Arrow's Reach does. I didn't figure this out till after the run, but for those making this build, I highly recommend using the item. Anyways, Margit's done. Afterwards, I used the first half of Raya's questline to get a somber 5 and 6. With runes from Margit, I upgraded the Cleaning Bone to +6 and made use of the Dex tier to further boost my damage. Now is a great time to talk about the Astral Roar that comes with this weapon. It's called Lifesteal, and it's been a thing in the Souls game since Dark Souls 1. Lifesteal is something that can be used on most human-like enemies or a tarnished. It basically drains some health and converts it into yours. This was very helpful in the Gideon duel later on, but for most bosses it proved to be very ineffective, although I'm sure it's also really good in PvP if you can actually land a hit with it. I still had like no health at this point due to the brutal item requirements for this build, but it didn't really matter. This is Godric, he's either tough or easy. I found out during this fight that the Cleaning Bone weapon, although not amazing, is really fun to use, and it actually deals quite a lot of damage. It was doing solid yellow damage during Godric's phase transition, and that's usually a good sign. After breaking his stance and getting some riposte damage, I was easily able to finish off this boss with Rocksling. Now it's time for Radahn, and it was cool talking with Jaren because I'll probably be cosplaying as him next. I also just gotta point out that Ensha has to be one of the coolest looking characters in this game. I did summon for Radahn, but only because the fight is so much more fun this way. I've beaten him without summons multiple times, like in my Darien run and in my Micah run, so I thought this would be okay. I definitely found it strange how well Rocksling worked for this fight, considering Radahn is the master of gravity magic. I didn't need to use my Cleaning Bone once, and Radahn got staggered multiple times because of this build. I also just avoided avoided his attacks on horseback and kept shooting rocks at him. Eventually he went down. With Radahn's fight over, I can take a long sprint to the secret catacombs in his arena. I don't need to do much but run past a few enemies to get the collapsing stars incantation. This is when I realized I needed 36 intelligence to use this. I couldn't help but sigh when finding this out, because deep down I knew this spell wouldn't be that good, so it just kind of felt like a waste of levels. Since I couldn't kill Grail without a bleed weapon, I saved some golden foul feet to get as many runes as I could. Now the only thing stopping me from getting into the capital is the Draconic Tree Sentinel. Although I took this guy down on my first try, this is probably one of my more sloppier fights with this boss. Despite the fact that I have uploaded my last Elden Ring video not too long ago, I actually had recorded that footage a while back, so I was slightly rusty with a few bosses during the making of this video. However, besides Morgott, Maliketh, Gideon, and Godfrey, I beat every boss in my first try in this run. And most of my deaths were due to my lack of attention. I mean, I had muted the game audio to listen to music while I played during this entire video. But the reason you're seeing my flasks get drained in this fight is due to me being in the medium weight class. I'm much more used to playing this game with light roll, and this completely threw me off during the lightning attack. You know, the one where the boss literally channels his Zeus energy. I kept messing this up for some reason, but it wasn't really a big deal because I was guaranteed to survive every hit. The Cleaning Bone dealt great damage here, and I was able to take down the boss in under a few minutes. From here, I can finally get a Somber 7 Smithing Stone. Using this, I upgraded my weapon to +9, making a massive improvement already. I also killed the tree avatar for some runes. I was saving up to get my intelligence to 13, just in hopes that the Collapsing Stars spell would be good. Up next is the golden version of Godfrey. I don't know what was going on here, but I absolutely melted this boss. The +9 Cleaning Bone is just, I don't know, insane for some reason during this part of the game. I was performing basic jumping attacks, and I just destroyed the boss's health bar. This is my first time using a fist weapon for an entire run, and I definitely feel like I've been underestimating these things. Godfrey down. Before I really get into Morgott's fight, I do want to point out that I did try to use lifesteal here. I figured with Morgott's shackle, this would be a perfect time to try to make use of the slow attack. I wasn't surprised to see the results, but it does make me curious to see how hard a lifesteal only run would be. On my next go, I used jumping attacks instead. This fight convinced me to grab the Claw Talisman later on in the run, due to just how good this weapon could be when both blades hit the enemy. For the rest of this fight, it was really just a game of choosing my main weapon or Rock Sling. The Cleaning Bone was more risky, but dealt more damage, while Rock Sling dealt much less damage, but was far safer. I went with a complete mix of the two, which honestly just made the fight more enjoyable. Morgott down. Next is everyone's favorite boss, Fire Giant. I didn't even bother activating a rune arc here, and if you must know how I lost my previous one, well, here you go. Anyways, I didn't activate one because I went into the fight as a complete test for Collapsing Stars. And honestly, this spell could be worse. I mean, if you built a build around the spell, I bet it would be good. I was able to break his ankle in 1 bar of mana. This damage could be worse. But the bad thing about this spell is that you cannot cast it on a horseback. Anyone who's been watching this Elden Ring series might know how much I love this fight on Torrent. It does not matter that this is the damage I'm dealing to the guy. I put some Radiohead on and fought this guy for a bit. Honestly, it was a fun fight, and even though this boss has a lot of flaws, I don't mind it. Afterwards, I burned the Erdtree and woke up in Fair Missoula. I went for a Cracked Pod expedition, and then I was ready for Godskin Duo. In all these cosplay videos, this is the only time I allow myself to break the rules and use sleep pods. I really just can't deal with this boss without them. I could beat them if I really tried, but I'd rather spend my time editing videos for Dark Souls or something else. Rock Sling really did come in handy here because I could use it during Godskin's rolling attack. Beforehand, I also had acquired the Claw Talisman, which really boosted my damage. This weapon actually has a lot of potential. I didn't even need all my sleep pods because of how much damage I was dealing. Ensha is definitely going to be ranked pretty high in the tier list. Maliketh, oh Maliketh. This was the only boss that I struggled with in this playthrough. I don't really know why either, because honestly I was dealing solid damage. Funny enough, I was actually struggling with the Beast Clergyman much more than I was with Maliketh himself. The actual fight where I won was somewhat clean, but some of the previous attempts were rough. Genuinely, I just think I'm rusty at this fight. Openings are easy to pull off on the Beast Clergyman, but hard to find, whereas openings on Maliketh are hard to pull off, but easy to find. Now, there was one other thing that happened here that was just really weird. Sometimes my damage would be extra worse. Usually it'd be something like this, but then sometimes it would be like this. So my first thought was that I was just hitting the boss with only one of my cleaning bones, since it's a dual wielded weapon. But then, can someone explain this? Hey, I'm not complaining about this damage, but I just do not know what caused it. There was one other really cool thing that happened revolving around my armor. When Maliketh uses a certain attack, they can give you a constant damage effect. Ensha's armor has the ability to heal you when you are very close to death. Here's a moment where I had the effect, but was then saved by my armor. Pretty cool. It's like if you took plot armor more literally. This boss is really good, but definitely the hardest for me. Now it's the moment you might have been waiting for. Ensha versus Gideon. And honestly, this was just so insanely cool. Lifesteal really was a save here. I don't typically like this fight, but this Ash of War is just built different for a situation like this. Gideon hits like a tank, but I was able to corner him for the first half of the fight near some pillars. These became a vital use of coverage for me when Gideon started to spam every projectile known to man. After a lot of lifesteals, the apprentice won. Next up is Godfrey, and I would like to point out that I did try to make use of collapsing stars, but it was just honestly a bad spell. During this entire fight, I only got hit 4 times, so I'd say it went pretty good. In the first phase, I only got hit once with his ground slam, but other than that, I dodged everything he threw at me. I was even able to entirely skip his second phase and go straight into the Horaloo fight instead. The cleaning bone is just that good. Here I got hit 3 times, so I think it was a little sloppier than I meant it to be, but it still went really well. I don't know, there really isn't much to say about this fight specifically, other than that I was carried by jump attacks. Alright, let me explain something about this next fight. Putting aside Radahn entirely, I beat Elden Beast hitless. Kind of. Yeah, this actually made me so sad. Under pressure, I jumped a little too early and got tagged by one of the aerial circles. If you can just ignore that, I never technically got hit by this guy. During his Elden Stars charge up, I staggered him, completely avoiding the attack. I honestly love this fight so much, and I think it just gets a lot of undeserved complaining. Afterwards, I picked up Marika's skull, quickly became the Elden Lord, sat on the throne, and then placed Ensha right back in his resting place like nothing had happened. So I'm doing this new thing at the end of my cosplay runs, where I rank not only how powerful these cosplay builds are, but also how fun they are to play as. I wanted to do this because part of this series is to help players find new builds to replay Elden Ring with. Here's the tier list I'm pretty confident with, and yeah, Ensha is pretty high up there. There are just so many characters in Elden Ring that I've yet to complete. My eyes are currently on Jaren, but please, comment down below who you want to see next. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing. There's not much left to say, so I'll see you guys in the next one.